Hello and welcome. Have you ever stared at your screen in horror as your PC flashes up some weird error code? Maybe the blue screen of death? Or some cryptic number that looks like it's been written in an alien language? Don't panic. In today's video, I'm literally going to crack the code and show you what your computer is really trying to tell you. These codes literally show up at the very worst times, whether you're working, gaming, or in the middle of a meeting. And the myth is always the same. It must be something big, scary, and expensive. But in reality, most codes are surprisingly specific and often quite fixable. You can actually think of the error codes as your PC's way of talking to you. That jumble of numbers and letters, that's actually pointing you towards the root cause of the issue. Once you understand the structure of these codes, you can figure out whether it's a hardware, driver, or software issue, making your life a little bit easier. So you can actually quite handily break these error codes down into families. You can think of it as a bit like when you learn a new language and you learn a few root words to start with to make the whole process easier. So the first kind of category or family that I'm going to look at are the Windows stopcodes, or the blue screen of deaths. So these are quite common and typical errors that you might see. So first off, I'm starting with system thread exception not handled. Can't tell you how many times I've seen this one during my PC fixing journey. This one usually actually points to a graphics driver problem, and it often happens right after boot or during gaming. The important bit with this is to check which driver is named in the error, which look like this for NVIDIA and this for AMD. Basically, the easiest way to fix this is to reinstall or update that driver. Next up, we have inaccessible boot device. What this means is that Windows can't read your system drive. This happens after things like BIOS changes, drive corruption, or even a loose cable. So double check your SATA or NVMe settings in the BIOS and run disk repair tools. If it keeps happening, unfortunately, your drive may be dying. So lastly, for Windows stopcodes, I have machine check exception. If you see this, it's almost always hardware. You can think overheating CPU, bad power supply, or overclocking gone wrong. Easiest fixes for this is to reset the BIOS to default, check your cooling, and stress test components one at a time. There's a really good piece of stress testing software that I use called OCBase or OCCT. I've actually left a link in the description for this so you can check it out for yourselves. So next up in our family of error codes are application-specific errors. These are usually all about missing files, bad installs, conflicting software, or compatibility problems. I've created a list of the most common ones that you will come across here. Let's go through them one by one. Okay, so first up we have missing or corrupted dependencies. Apps often rely on external files like DLLs or frameworks, so you can think .NET, Java, or DirectX, or things like Visual C++. If those files are missing or damaged, the app crashes or fails to start. So next up we have version conflicts. So that's running a 32-bit app with 64-bit libraries, or vice versa. Another cause can be outdated app versions conflicting with newer system updates or drivers. Corrupt installation or updates. So incomplete installs, failed updates, or corrupted cache or temp files can make an app unstable. This is quite common in games and large software packages, so things like Steam, Adobe, or Office. Another very common one is software conflicts. So that's two programs fighting over the same resource. So antivirus blocking a game, or an overlay software clashing with apps. There's often a background service interfering with launches, so that could be things like third-party add-ons or plugins. Next up, we have permission and access issues. So this can happen when the app doesn't have the rights to read or write a file or folder. This is quite common in Windows programs or when running as a non-admin. So next up, we have registry or configuration errors. So this can often be caused by invalid settings left behind by previous installs. It could be corrupt registry keys, or even broken configuration files. And lastly, one that I see quite often is incompatibility. So that's running older software on a newer OS without compatibility settings. So for example, Windows 11 with an old Windows XP app, And also possibly one of the biggest one is lack of updates from the developer. Okay, so lastly, in our family of error codes, we have hardware postcodes. You know, those beeps you can get on startup that can be really irritating. Yes, they do actually mean something. So this often points to issues with hardware. So that's your RAM, that's your GPU, or your motherboard. You can think of post codes a little bit like your PC's Morse code. So these comprise of short beeps, long beeps, or even numbers flashing up on a tiny little display. Whilst they do vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, here are kind of a list of the most common ones that you'll run into. Okay, so the first beep is actually a good beep. If you're getting a single short beep, that usually means that all is well, the system has passed post, and it's ready to boot. However, if you are hearing a continuous beeping, so your PC's just beeping non-stop, that often points to a RAM problem. Either the memory isn't seated properly or a stick has actually failed. Next up, we have one long beep and two short beeps. This pattern usually points to a graphics card issue, so the system can't detect your GPU or it's malfunctioning. Then we have one long and three short beeps. This can either mean a GPU error or a memory issue, depending on the BIOS or manufacturer. But in both cases, check your RAM and graphic cards connections first. Next up, we have repeated short beeps. So this is a series of short, rapid beeps. Almost always usually means bad RAM or improperly installed memory. Then you just have the one where there's a continuous, high-pitched tone. So a high-pitched tone continuously usually signals a CPU overheating or a fan failure. In this case, I would recommend shutting down immediately and checking your cooling. Then the last one is actually no beep at all. So if you hear nothing and the PC won't start, that can actually point to a dead motherboard, a bad power supply, or even a failed CPU. Okay, so now we all have an idea of what some of these error codes mean, I'm going to share a tiny weeny little secret. The best way to deal with these error codes is to prevent them in the first place. So that means running regular system scans, it means keeping your drivers and, most importantly, Windows updated, and monitoring your system's temperatures, because we don't want to overheat those precious components. Another one, and this is probably the most crucial one, is to back up your data on a regular basis, because even if we know what those error codes mean, it doesn't mean that a drive won't fail, so it's always best to have a backup. And then finally, know your limits. If you're running into repeated codes flashing up or repeated beeps and you've tried fixes, maybe you just need to replace that particular component itself. Okay, so we've reached that point. We're at the end of the video. But hey, next time your PC throws up a really scary error code, you now know not to panic, translate it because it's your computer literally telling you exactly what's wrong with it. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more tech tips. I'm actually really interested to see what is the weird or most weirdest error codes that you guys have seen. So maybe think about dropping them in the comments. And maybe we'll cover that in a future video. I don't know. Let's see where it goes. But until then, keep calm and decode on. Thank you ever so much for making this far, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, guys.